This is the Forbes Books Podcast, conversations with amazing humans who are impacting the world of business and beyond. Hola, I'm Joe Pardavila, and I'm super lucky to have this pod to chat with entrepreneurs and business leaders that are affecting lives of a lot of people. But today, I'm joined by an executive who is leading a global technology company that serves 99% of Fortune 500 companies in over 120 countries. His name is Kyle Malady, the Executive Vice President and CEO of Verizon Business Group. We're going to get into the advancements of technology he's seen over the course of his illustrious career, the difference between running a B2B and a B2C, and how a CTO became a CEO. Kyle, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me on, Joe.
Kyle, I feel like we are separated at birth. We are like the Drake song. We started from the bottom and now we're here. I was an intern at WPLJ Radio, which I'm sure you probably listened to growing up. And
Sure.
I started as an intern, worked my way up to be a co-host and executive producer of the show. And same thing with you. You were a site technician at an old mobile company, and here you are as CEO. How the hell did that happen?
I guess a little bit of good luck and a lot of hard work, I guess, Joe. I mean, and even before that, even before I got the full-time job of being a cell site tech, I was working part-time, even in high school, temping and, just doing odd jobs around the business. And that was right around when wireless technology was starting to, was invented and starting to be commercialized. So I got in at the ground, timing, good luck, and working hard, man. That's all it was for me.
That's so cool. And I remember going back to those days. So I went to high school in the 90s, and I had this strange science teacher. I still remember, his name was Mr. Rapp. He was like straight out of like a movie. He had big puffy hair, big black glasses, and he said, "You know what the telecom companies are doing now? They're laying these like fiber optics in the ground that's going to be able to transmit video and picture and everything to your home via your computer." And at the time, I was like, "What? This is science fiction. What are you talking about?" And lo and behold, within a few years, we had dial-up internet, and then we had the DSL, and finally broadband. But let's talk about the speed of technology, because that's 30 years ago. We've gone from zero internet to what we have now, like internet in our hands. Can you talk about this pace of technology?
Sure. I mean, and before this role, Joe, I was actually the CTO of the company. So I did a lot of, me and my colleagues did a lot of the work on the technology that you now see today. I often tell a story about way back in the day, there's a technology called T1. And what it is, it's a connection that's really built on copper, because it was built on old copper phone lines like we used to have. And the speed was 1.5 megabits a second. And it cost like a lot of money to get that. And that was like the holy grail, man. If I can get a T1 to my house, I would be living large, right? Because that's when people had dial-ups and doing 9.6 baud and all that kind of stuff. You really couldn't do much with it other than to send email, which was super cool. But I mean, that was kind of it. Or you could send some pictures. And so that was like the state of the art. Just over 1 megabit a second. We were actually at Super Bowl last week, and we always make sure that our networks are in perfect condition for Super Bowl. And our cell phones right here, our new vintage cell phone, we were doing 5.5 gigabits a second.
Wow!
So imagine that jump from you needed a connection, a landline connection on copper. You can only get 1 meg out of it, all the way to today, where you have in your hands, as you said, you have in your hands in your pocket, you have this computer that can do over 5 gigs a second. It's kind of amazing. And that's honestly why I've always been, I landed in the right industry for me, because the pace of change and technology change is ongoing and quick. And, I've had a front row seat or been involved in it with my colleagues and myself ever since, basically the first cell phone. So it's been an awesome ride for me in this industry.
That's amazing. And you mentioned the fact that you've always been in tech. You hustled when you were in high school and then worked on the towers and stuff. When did you fall in love with technology? Like, do you remember like your very first computer and everything like that? Mine was the Commodore 64.
For me, I guess more mechanical. So I used to rip apart engines and whatnot and put them back together and rebuild them. And, that always just fascinated me, how things work, right? And I had a Commodore 64, but I liked all different technology and just learning about it. And when I went to college, I went and I received my mechanical engineering degree, because I thought I wanted to go maybe more defense contracting, work on gas turbines, jet engines, stuff like that. And just because I was doing these part-time gigs working at a company called 9X Mobile, back in the day. That's where I fell in love with the wireless technology, and I just thought it was super cool. But that's back in the time when, well, you were in high school in the 90s, so I was in the 80s. When this first started, what some we call a transceiver used to take up the whole back of a trunk of a car. So, and now it's in your hand, right? So just watching that evolution again was super cool. But yeah, that's how I started. It was really fun.
That's great. And here's a silly question, because I remember when Cellular One, that was my first carrier. I remember how the cell phone charges at the time were very, very expensive. Like they had these weird deals. Like people wouldn't even relate to this now, where if you called the same carrier, it didn't cost you any money. But if you called somebody that was on another carrier, it cost you X number of dollars. If you called out of state, there was roaming charges. There was all this weird shit going on back in the early days. What happened to it being like a rich man's game, where you remember seeing like Michael Douglas in Wall Street holding that giant black cell phone, to where we talk about the size of the phones? How did it go from being like a device for the uber wealthy to just everyone? Can you explain to me, because I'm more curious than anything, how that happened?
Actually, there's really two things: is technology advancements, and then scope and scale, right? And a big thing is frankly battery life, right? So way back when you're talking about it, just that big battery, that was a big phone for Michael Douglas because it needed a really, really big battery, right? So the battery technology actually evolved to the point now it's just little packs and you can charge them really quick. But that was a big evolution, moving from the back of a trunk, right, into a smaller form factor. And really because also back then, I remember I started, we only had like 70 cell sites. It's really gotten so it's affordable because the scope and scale of it all. Obviously, the more scale you get, the more you refine the technologies, you bring down the cost of certain components, and then the networks, the investment into the networks, which is billions and billions and tens of billions of dollars, getting it to a point where it's ubiquitous service. All these things over time came to play for now it's affordable. So, wow. It's great. I think when we first started, I'm not sure we really saw this coming, right? Because like I tell people, we built the 71st cell site and we're thinking, okay, well, how many we need of these things? Like 100 of them? And we're going to be out of a job. But, the network now is many, 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 many tens of thousands of these things. And we keep putting them in because the demand is there. But so it's incredible for me to see it too, from this evolution when I just started as a kid to where it is now, where everybody has one and everybody has one in their pocket.
Wow. And speaking of your evolution, you're coming up on your 1-year anniversary of being named CEO of Verizon Business, right? March of 23, you were named. Tell me about the last year for you. As you mentioned, you were CTO, so you've had leadership positions within the company. But now, I'm sure it's a nice corner office, or maybe your home office. I don't know how you're working these days. Yeah. So tell me about the last year. How's that been for you?
It's been awesome. Thanks for asking that. So I really like the tech, and that's what I've been involved with my whole career. But I was also the IT department worked for me, so it was kind of the CIO worked in my group. And I've always been on the buy side and the inventing of things. And so it's really fun for me to come over on this side of the house and be more in charge of what are our go-to-market strategies and, what are we positioning to sell with our customers? What new tech are we going to take out of the garage and bring it to our customers and how to use it? And I can speak their language. So when I'm sitting down with CIOs and the like about what troubles or what kind of things are they trying to solve within their business, I can relate to it because I was doing it over here at Verizon. So when I get together with CIOs and talk about how we can help them, it's a natural discussion. And I really enjoy that because every firm has a different issues they have, and kind of digging into that and seeing how we can bring technology to help them is super rewarding, because at the end of the day, when they put things in and things work better, their back office works better. It's exciting for me to see as a technology guy. So, and the other part of that, running a sales organization, there's points on the board every day, right? I can wake up every morning, I can see how we did the day before. And that's not so much in technology. When you're building technology, sometimes it takes a little while for it to take on. And so you watch trends over time. In the sales world, there's points on the board every day. And I love that.
And how did you grapple with the sales part of it? Because I often see that a lot of people that rise the ranks in companies, they usually come from the sales or finance side. It's like the CFO becomes a CEO, and it's very common for someone on the, like even in radio, usually the top sales guy becomes a sales manager and then becomes a general manager of the station. You did in reverse. You were on the tech side of things. I mean, did you have to have an MBA MBA training on the spot kind of thing to learn about that stuff?
Well, I'm learning. I do have an MBA, by the way, in finance, because I started going down my engineering, getting more, and then so I went down an MBA and I did all that thing. And then obviously I've had to manage a lot of budgets over time. So you need to, if you're going to be a CEO, you need to have a broad portfolio of understanding of what it takes to run the business. Obviously, I was stronger and had a better background in technology kind of things. So I'm learning some, tricks from the great sales folks that we have here today. But once again, in this world, when we're selling to businesses, not necessarily a consumer, I can talk solutions with them. And so for me, that actually helps out while I'm selling. I'm actually creating solutions for their business, helping them move forward. So it's a little bit easier than just, if you gave me a widget and I had to go sell it on the street corner somehow, that might be a little difficult for me. But coming up with a solution that can help, somebody's business move forward it's a little more in my wheelhouse. But I am learning a lot. I'm also a big believer in, we're all good at something or a few things. You have to surround yourself with people who are good at what I call your blind spots. So yeah, I didn't come up with from a big sales background, but I have great people who work with me and I'm learning from them every day.
Sweet. And speaking of speaking in language, I've often spoken to tech leaders about that there's this idea in the tech sector that you've got to talk smart. You've got to speak in these like random acronyms that people don't understand. And then when you're trying to talk to someone, they're looking at you with like a glazed look over you. And then the folks that actually get it, like the tech people who can speak in human speak, they're the ones that become the leaders. They're the ones that drive companies, start companies, because they can connect with people on the ground level. They don't have to be the smartest tech person in the room and prove all of the things they know. They don't have to be Oppenheimer when it comes to technology. They could just talk the talk. And it sounds like you've always had that. Is that the case? Like it's always been part of your DNA?
I appreciate that, Joe. I think I learned it. I mean, it took me a little while. Once there is a special language you talk in like the telecom industry. Like you said, there's all acronyms and when you're talking with somebody it's fine because you both know what you're talking about. But I learned pretty early on, if I bring that jargon out and I'm trying to convince somebody to do something, I bring the jargon out, people shut off right away. They're like, what the hell's going on? Like, what's he talking about? I don't even know. So I learned pretty early on, like you have to take it and you have to bring it to a way that people can understand it. Because you can use the acronym, but you explain what the acronym is. Like, here's this is what this means. And then you start talking in whoever you're talking with their language. And it's just about communicating effectively so they understand and they can get your ideas. And that's, I learned that pretty early on. And I got to be, it took me about a year. And I listen too, you come out of school and, hey, I'm a hustler and I know this stuff and you want to show all the great things you can do. But over time you realize, no, it's about how do you make that human connection and how do you communicate things in a way that the other person can understand you, and then you can get their questions back. So not everybody gets there either. Some people, that's just the way they talk and the way they do. But luckily, I was able to kind of see that early on. I could be more effective if I change the way I explain things.
That's so cool. And on the subject of technology and partnerships, I'm assuming in your CTO role you had to deal with this. But I know last year you announced a strategic partnership with HCL Tech for managed network services. And maybe this could tie into your CTO background, but talk to me about your role as CEO and bringing in partnerships together. Because as companies as big as Verizon, the only way you get bigger is by partnering up with people. Because it's not like you can get much bigger than you are on your own. You need to partner people and mergers and acquisitions and such. So talk to me about your ability to form partnerships. Did that start in your CTO days, or is this something that you're developing into now?
No, that started a long time ago. And it basically goes down to, Joe, like your philosophy on business to a certain extent. There's once again, it goes back to like I talked to you, surround people with where you have gaps. And no company could be great at everything. And I'm a firm believer, there's certain things that we do really, really well. And there's other things that other people are world-class in. And you can truly make a 1 + 1 = 3. And I learned that early on, and you ask a question about the rise of the cell phone and how it's evolved over time. I mean, super close partnerships we've built over the years with the likes of the Qualcomms and the Googles and the Apples, and Nokia and Ericsson. It takes a community of experts in all manner of fields to be able to move the industry forward, and you can only do that if you partner well. And partnering well, there's two different types. There's, hey, we can do transactional stuff together and I'll buy some stuff from you and okay, it is what it is and we'll negotiate. And then there's true partnerships where everybody's given a little bit so we can create something that's better together. And that's actually what we did with HCL here. I'm very happy with that partnership and what we going on. They bring an incredible tech stack for managing services, best in the world, and we build the best network. So marrying those two together so we can really do some great things for our customers is a great example of that. And, but you got to work on the partnerships too. I spend a lot of time with our partners talking about, what do they need from us? What they can do for us. Where do we see the market going? And how do we, using hockey parlance, where do we skate to where the puck's going to be, not where it is?
And you had a lot of, obviously, extensive tech experience before you took the role of CEO and what fueled you through the company, being CTO and such. But how important do you think that was from your board or bosses, whoever made you the CEO? How important was that element of your career that they said, we need to have this person with this kind of experience be our CEO to help the company grow and take us in the right direction? What do you think that part, obviously you have, your career is multifaceted, but what do you think that part of your career had to do with you getting the job?
I think the board and Hans, who's my boss, I think they just step back. This part of the business is very complicated because you have not only the wireless part of it, but you have all of the landline, the undersea cables. We have connectivity of people in 150 countries throughout the world and a lot of different technologies, landline and wireless. And I kind of understand how it all stitches together and works. And that's, like I said, I can sit across the CIO and understand what his problems are. And I know what our portfolio of technology is that we could bring to bear to help them. So I think a lot of it, I think a lot of that decision was, hey, this guy knows a lot of the tech and how it could work and how it can solve problems. So let's give him a shot. Because it's pretty funny, Joe. When I first took the role, a lot of people were surprised, like, wow, a tech guy is going to go run this thing. For me, it seemed like natural. It wasn't a big deal, but for a lot of people outside, it was an interesting thing. So I've gotten that question a lot, but I think it's really because I understand fundamentally at a really fundamental level how all this stuff puts together and how it works.
And did you ever see yourself as CEO? Because, we've kind of alluded to the fact that most CTOs don't become CEOs, especially of giant companies like a Verizon Business. Were you, this could be kind of silly, but were you surprised that you were even in the running or did you put yourself in the mix? If you don't mind sharing that, because I think maybe as someone who's a tech person listening, be like, hey, you mean I could be a CEO of a company even though I'm a tech guy? Like, tell me about that.
Yeah, so I'll be honest with you. It's never been a thing that I really, wanted to do or wanted to be. Like I said, I like the tech. I like being involved in setting up the tech and new technologies and bringing them to our customers. It's just what I've done. And I'm, like I said, I'm a little older, right? I'm getting along in my career. But when there's a history here too, when the company comes and asks you, they think you can help the company in a certain way. And this company's been very good to me. And so I said yes. And sure, did I have some, a little bit of trepidation, like holy mackerel, like, okay. But I got over that quickly and hopped right in and just started planning and executing, getting to meet everybody. And, it's been fantastic. But no, it was not on my radar screen. It was something I was going to do. And but when the company asked, it did make logical sense to me. And I hopped in and here we go. And we're off on a great ride.
That's awesome. And if you don't mind this kind of goofy question, you're the CEO of Verizon Business. What is the difference between being someone running a company that's strictly B2B to the consumer side? And I know it's and obviously I'm not that dumb, Kyle. I know it's like you're dealing with businesses and not people. But what are some of the main differences when you're leading a company that's strictly B2B as opposed to the B2C side of the Verizon part?
Right, and that's I think where the complexity comes in. Right, we all know from when you're working with a consumer, whether it be for our wireless service. What customers want. They're using it for personal use, and we know that's pretty clear. You understand that. And then also, say on the FiOS side, we know people want FiOS in consumer land so they can get great broadband. They can see TV. It's pretty clear what the product is. In the B2B space, it's different because you can have all the way from a small medium business where they just need 4 or 5 wireless phones, and they use them different than a consumer. Than say a broadband, all the way to the largest enterprises on the globe, and they need global connectivity and private networks, right? So they want to make sure that security is top of mind for them, making sure the reliability is there, because if something goes wrong, say one of our circuits blows out or their cell phones don't work for a while, they're losing money, right? So this is mission critical. It's running their business. And not only for enterprises, but for public sector. So we power a lot of the public sector, first responders. They need to make sure that their services are going to work so they can respond to mission critical, whether it be tornadoes or hurricanes or what have you. So there's a little bit of a different kind of dynamic when you're dealing with the customer's needs there. That's really more it's the complexity about it. And then we're setting them up so they succeed with their businesses or, whatever their mission happens to be.
So it seems like, just trying to decipher, there's more nuance onto the business side, whereas with the consumer side, it's pretty black and white. I want a phone that's going to work, good internet. I could be able to, post my videos, go on TikTok. Whereas every business is not created equal. So you've got to sort of modify things for each business. Is that right?
For each business. Because, hey, in the consumer, hey, I like the color of the phone. In the business land, that doesn't, nobody's really hitting me up on the color of the phone, to be honest with you. But what they do want to do is, hey, how good is the coverage in this area? Can you guarantee me you will provide this level of service in this area for this product or this service? And also, hey, Kyle, I got this problem. I need you to help me with this problem. Can you bring any tech forward to help me with this thing? And that's where it gets really exciting, being on the front line of those asks and seeing how we can put things together to help somebody with a unique problem. And in the consumer world, you don't necessarily get that so much, right? So that's where I find the business part super interesting.
Sweet. You mentioned 5G earlier, and I guess our relationship with 5G got off to a rocky start back in 2020 when you had all these strange, brass conspiracies about it. But for the uninitiated, so someone like myself or someone else who's not as technologically savvy as you, tell me about the current state of 5G. How good is it, and where's it going?
5G is super healthy. I think what people, if you look back and if you remember when we did 4G, when we first did 4G, there was no real smartphones. There was no real killer apps. There wasn't much going on with 4G. And then all of a sudden, the whole app economy started, and the smartphones taking off and people understanding like the power of it. But it takes a lot of different technologies to come together to build the platform for 4G and launch the app society. But that took a little bit of time. I think what people were expecting in 5G is like, okay, we flipped the switch, you got 5G, and all magic's going to come forth. It doesn't necessarily happen like that. It usually takes a little bit of time. And the good things about 5G is it gives us so much more capacity in our networks that'll allow us to do different things. And one thing that we're really excited about right now is we're doing fixed wireless access, which is really broadband to your home without the cable. And we're getting a ton of traction on that. And that's really because of 5G. 5G gave us the capacity and technology that we can offer this to customers and frankly, create some competition in markets that used to have one cable provider, and that was it. So now there's competition for broadband because of 5G. People don't realize that so much, but there's new things coming, just like with having 4G. As you build a platform, people develop new things. And one great example is what we just announced with NHL, where we're putting in what we call private networks. So you can have not only a great experience for the consumer in the venue, but we can run their back office operations, whether it be point of sales, at kiosks, if you want to buy in New Jersey, and all the way to helping player operations, helping the teams look at videos. So, we're putting the technology platform in, and then people will develop things on top of it. There was a lot of hype of 5G, and now you start seeing the technologies come that are going on top of it to make it really shine.
Cool. A couple things I want to unpeel there is because, when you describing it reminds me of when HD television came around. Remember when all the networks started broadcasting HD, but no one had HD televisions? And now it's ubiquitous. Everyone has an HD TV, but there was a time where you would get a signal and you'd have black bars because you didn't have an HD TV in your house or something like that. So that's very similar. And the other thing that I wanted to unpeel there was the broadband at home. I know you and your competitors offer this service where you put a little box in someone's house and they get 5G internet. Now, me as a consumer who works from home a lot, that scares the living snot out of me, Kyle. I feel like, wait a minute, you're telling me everything that we've been doing at home and all the technology we're using can now be powered essentially by this one little box? How far along has it come? Make me feel comfortable if I was one of these people like, man, I would love to have that broadband box in my house. Where are we at now with that? And like I said, I know you and many of your competitors have this service, but Is it safe, reliable? Tell me more about that.
It's all of that. We wouldn't have launched it. Listen, we've had Fios out there, which is our fiber offering in the market for 2 decades now. So we know what customers require in terms of reliability and up speed, load speeds and all that. So we've been in the game a long time. We wouldn't have put this out if we didn't think it was going to meet the mark. And we see it's meeting the mark. The reliability's there, for sure. Because just think about it. It's harder when you have one of these things and you're rolling around and you're driving in your car at 70 miles an hour and making this go from one cell site to another cell site to another cell site and keep track of it and make sure it's staying up and all that. That's a lot harder to do than if you're just in your home and you got the box sitting there. Right? It's a lot easier for us technically from the network perspective to handle it. And so far we have great NPS scores. Those are the scores that we, if customers like our service and whatever. And not only that, but we're winning in the marketplace with the offering. So we feel good about it. We'll continue to work on it like we always do. Any technology, make it better and better and better. But right now, you should feel totally solid and secure in using our fixed wireless access product.
All right, you sold me. I would love to know, because we've talked about, we kind of started this conversation talking about, how far technology has come. Where do you think it's going? Because I feel like you're always looking ahead as well. And not that I expect you to drop any big Verizon reveals here on this podcast, but in terms of the technology, where else can we go? Because I know, the metaverse was hot a few years ago. That's disappeared. Now we're all worried about AI. Where's the technology going in the next few years? Any feelings from that?
I think a few things for me. So once again, 5G, we're building a platform communication technology that people will develop new things on it. One thing that we've done is we've taken, the great network we have and put a lot of the cloud computing right in our network. So we call it mobile edge compute. So now you can do things in much more real time. And one thing that I often think about is say for instance, say like betting. Say you want to do gambling in an arena. You really can't right now because the game's going on, and back in Vegas they're coming up with whatever the odds are or what have you, and there's just not enough time. But if you put the compute and AI together in a stadium or an arena, now you can open up new things. That's just like one example. So I think the real-time nature of communications along AI is going to be interesting. There's a lot of hype. AI's been around. We've been using AI for a long, long time in different ways. But now Gen AI is actually caught people's imagination. Having that compute along with our networks, and who knows what's going to happen with AI. You bring those things together, I think that's a nice soup for new and cool things to start emerging. I start seeing other things other than just a smartphone. Right. So you see Apple just launched their glasses. Other people are working on other similar things. So I think that's a whole area to watch as well, like different type of connected devices that aren't necessarily a smartphone. So compute in the network, new devices, new AI technology. The drumbeat's going to continue. It's been continuing. Just like when I thought 71 cell sites, if we get to 100, we'd be done. I still see a ton of runway here because the technology just keeps getting better and better and better.
That's so cool. All right, so I know you're a Jersey guy. Best concert you ever saw at Giant Stadium / MetLife Stadium? Do you have one that you remember going to and enjoying?
I guess I saw the Stones way long time ago, and I hadn't seen them. So I think that's probably one that was most memorable for me. And that was at Giant Stadium. I really haven't been to a concert in MetLife, I don't think. So
really? Well, yeah, Verizon has a pretty big footprint there. I'm surprised. Yeah, I'm surprised no one calls you up and be like, "Hey, Kyle, we got a box suite or something. Check it out. You can go anytime you want." But you got to call somebody, Kyle.
I'm too busy coming up with solutions for my customers, man.
All right. His name is Kyle Malady. He's the Executive Vice President and CEO of Verizon Business Group. Kyle, thanks for the time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on, Joe. Appreciate it.
Man, that's going to do it for another Forbes Books Podcast. Don't forget to leave a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify and hit subscribe so you don't miss any new episodes. You can always connect with me on X, LinkedIn, and Instagram at Joe Pardavila or TikTok at J Pardavila. And please don't forget the golden rule and treat others as you want to be treated. Thanks for listening. Until next time, adios.